Hey everybody, Aaron Bishop here with the Patterns of Life Bible. It may surprise you when you first encounter it, but the New Testament is written in chiasm form, just like the Old Testament. It may seem okay, it's somewhat natural for the ancient Israelites to read or to write in that way, but we find this throughout the New Testament. In fact, from end to end, the New Testament as well is a series of chiasms. And we see this all throughout. And we find in the letters of Paul that he actually uses this quite extensively and to some very profound effect. Let me show you an example of what I mean. In Romans pericope 12, which in your normal Bible would be Romans 5, verses 12 through 21, we read of Paul's comparison and contrasting of Adam and Messiah. This contrasting together of these two characters in the Bible, they provide a picture of man's natural nature and the new nature that we get through Jesus when we come to faith in him. And the highlight of this passage is pretty cool. So let's take a look at what Paul has to say. In A and A prime, we see something that's actually quite important. Sin is defined by the law, by the Torah, by the words that Moses wrote down that God gave to him. In A, it was that sin was in the world and existed before the law, but that it wasn't imputed before the law, that there was no guilt according to the Torah before the Torah was written. And in A prime, the law entered into the world so that sin might abound. But then where sin abounded, then grace abounded much more. And that as sin has reigned unto death, sin bringing us to the point of dying and perishing and passing away for good, then grace also reigns so that we might have eternal life. But in both the cases made, that sin is defined by the Torah. Without the Torah, you have no definition for sin. Then in B and B prime, we read of Adam's disobedience, his transgression. Despite the law not being present from Adam to Moses, there was still death because there was still sin. Even though it wasn't being held accountable, sin still happened. And so death still happened because of Adam's transgression against just the one rule that he had been given. And in B prime, by one man's disobedience to the commands of God, everyone was made a sinner. But then, because of the obedience of the one who is Jesus, the Messiah, many will be made righteous. And in C and C prime, it makes the point that it was just one man, it was just one sin that doomed the entire human race. In C in verse 15, through the offense of one, many came to be dead. But how much more through the grace of God? And it's the one man's righteousness that then abounds unto many and produces this great gift. And in C prime, it was the offense of the one judgment that came upon all men and caused this condemnation. And so too the righteousness of the one and the free gift of Jesus came upon all man unto justification for life. And in D, we see the crux of the matter. The condemnation that came through the world was because of one man's sin. And now the gift of God of righteousness is now through one man's righteousness. And this gift is something that wipes away offenses and leads to justification before God. And it was this one man's offense that caused death to reign. And it is through this one that the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness will now reign, rather than this death that is reigning in our flesh. We see in this passage this contrast of life and death, of sin and grace, of some even say law and grace. But when we read it in this way, we recognize it's not the law and grace that's being contrasted, it's life and death that's being contrasted. The law is the definition of sin. The law is there in order to reveal the sin that's in us and to reveal the need for grace, to reveal the need for salvation and justification. Because without it, we're still under that old man. We're still under sin. We're still part of the curse that came upon Adam. But with this one man, this new man, this Jesus Christ, this Messiah of Israel, we can join ourselves to him. We can accept his free gift of grace. And with that free gift of grace, we can then receive eternal life and justification. This is a profound contrast here. And when we make it just about the law versus grace, we completely miss the point. It's not about the law versus grace. They both serve their purpose. I'm going to post a link up here to another video I did that digs into the definition of grace in the first century and how it's not just a free gift of God, that there's this whole cultural dynamic that surrounds the idea of a gift. And understanding this greater cultural setting for the word grace can then really enhance your own relationship with God.